My fiancée cheated on me with 3 random guys during her bachelorette party, and instead of making a scene, I just disappeared. What happened afterward? It completely blew up the perfect little life she thought she had. But let's start from the beginning. Lena and I were both 31 when everything fell apart, but we first crossed paths at 25. It was at a birthday party for a mutual friend. I can still picture her from that night, laughing at some joke across the room, and right then, I thought she was the most stunning woman I'd ever laid eyes on. She had this magnetic vibe, the kind of presence that pulls you in without even trying. By the time the night wrapped up, the two of us were out on the patio, deep in conversation, music, movies, travel dreams, you name it. I was already falling for her. A few weeks later, we officially started dating, and about a year after that, we moved in together. Life felt good. At least, that's what I believed. Lena liked to go out more than I did, sure, but I never thought it crossed the line. I figured that was just her being her. We seemed like a good team, me, more steady and grounded, her, full of energy and excitement. So when I popped the question last year, I truly believed she was the one. She cried when I proposed, real tears, and said yes before I could even finish asking. We dove into planning mode for months, venues, cake tastings, even light arguments over the open bar situation. I genuinely thought we were building something real. Turns out, I was wrong. It all started unraveling with a delivery, a stupid package of all things. I wasn't even supposed to be home when it arrived. My shift ended early, and I thought I'd surprise Lena by coming home to make us dinner. But when I got to our place, there was this small gift bag sitting by the door. It had a shiny little tag that read, "To the wildest bride-to-be, you deserved every second of it. Love, Brielle." At first, I didn't think too much of it. Brielle was Lena's best friend, they'd been inseparable since college. I'd always found Brielle a bit much, loud, dramatic, the kind of person who lived for chaos, but I put up with her for Lena's sake. Those two were always up to something. Lena liked to say they were the fun duo. But something about that tag made me feel uneasy. I brought the bag inside and left it on the kitchen counter, just staring at it. My mind kept flipping back and forth, probably nothing, but, why does it feel off? Curiosity got the better of me. I told myself I wasn't snooping, just checking. After all, it was right there in the open. Practically begging to be opened. Inside were the usual bachelorette party clichés, a plastic tiara, a bride's last ride sash, sparkly confetti everywhere. But at the bottom of the bag, buried beneath the glitter, was something I didn't expect, a pair of men's boxers. Used. Not clean. My stomach turned. I tried to brush it off, maybe a prank, a bad joke. Then I spotted a flash drive tucked in next to them. I can't even explain what made me plug it in, but at that point, I think I already knew something was off. The video started simple enough, Lena and her friends at a club, laughing, drinking, living it up. The camera zoomed in on Lena, decked out in her sash and tiara. She looked gorgeous, as always. But there was something wild in her expression. Like she was untouchable. Like nothing mattered. The next part hit harder. Lena joined the entertainer on stage for a bold dance moment, and her friends went wild with excitement. At first, I tried to rationalize it, it's a bachelorette party, right? Not great, but not the worst thing in the world. Then she pulled the stripper off stage and led him toward a private room, giggling like it was all a game. I paused the video. My heart was pounding in my chest. I tried to tell myself maybe it was just a joke, just for show. But deep down, I knew. And the next clip erased any doubt. There she was, in a lounge area, cozied up with 3 different guys. They were all laughing, flirting, drinking, and then one leaned in and kissed her. And she didn't stop him. She kissed him right back. Then the second guy joined in. By the end of the clip, she was taking all 3 of them into what looked like a hotel room. And just to twist the knife, I could hear Brielle's voice in the background, giggling and narrating like it was the best night ever. "Lena, you're a legend. Bride of the year." I stared at that screen, feeling like someone had gutted me. This wasn't the woman I thought I knew. Not the Lena who used to fall asleep next to me while we watched cheesy rom-coms. Not the Lena who cried when we talked about having kids someday. She came home later that evening like nothing had happened. Kissed me on the cheek, asked how my day was, and started rambling about Brielle's wedding decoration ideas. I smiled. I nodded. But I was gone inside. I couldn't look at her without seeing that video. Couldn't hear her voice without hearing Brielle's laughter behind it. I felt like a fool. Like I'd missed the signs, or maybe I'd just ignored them. And maybe this wasn't even the first time. But in the end, it didn't matter. Because the person I thought I was going to marry didn't exist. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, the video playing in my mind on repeat. Every laugh, every kiss, it felt like a knife to the chest. I wanted to scream at her. To demand answers. But I knew it wouldn't undo anything. The next morning, Lena got up early like usual. She kissed me on the forehead before heading out and said, "I can't wait to see you tonight, babe." I didn't say a word. I smiled right back at her and said, "Me too." But the second she walked out the door, I was already in motion. No coffee, no pacing around, no sitting down to think things through, I just moved. I grabbed my old duffel from the closet and started tossing stuff in. Clothes, a toothbrush, my laptop, chargers, anything essential that I could fit without tearing the place apart. I wasn't planning on coming back, so there was no reason to overthink what stayed and what went. The couch. The TV. All the little kitchen things we picked out together. She could have every last bit of it. I didn't care anymore. I just wanted out. Fast. And as I was shoving stuff into the bag, it hit me, I'd never done anything like this before. I was always the type to map everything out. Vacations, work meetings, even which movie we'd stream on a lazy Sunday. But right then, I was running on instinct. No plan. Just get out. I grabbed my phone and started searching for a place to stay. A hotel in the city felt too clinical, too close to all the mess. I needed distance. I needed to be somewhere I could breathe, somewhere quiet where no one knew my name. That's when I found this little resort about 2 hours outside town. Nothing fancy, just peaceful. They had one room left, and it was available that night. That was all I needed. I called, booked it for a full week, and paid up front without flinching. Price didn't matter. Peace of mind did. Before walking out, I grabbed a folder from my desk that held all our wedding paperwork, contracts, deposits, receipts. I wasn't about to eat the cost of a wedding that was never going to happen. First stop. The venue. I called them as I stepped into the hallway. "Hey, this is Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to cancel a wedding reservation." The woman on the phone sounded taken aback. "Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that. May I ask why?" There was no way I was about to tell her the real reason. So I went with the easy answer, plans changed. Life, you know. I could practically hear her nodding through the phone. She started going over cancellation policies and how I'd lose 20% of the deposit. Whatever. I didn't care. "That's fine," I said. "Just cancel it." With that, I got in the car and hit the road. I didn't even glance back at the apartment. The drive out to the resort felt unreal, like I wasn't really behind the wheel but just following the GPS on autopilot. My mind was stuck replaying every second of that video, every frame burned into memory. Was that night just a one-time thing, or had she always been hiding this part of herself? That wild, careless side? I didn't know. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. About halfway there, I pulled off at a gas station. Picked up some snacks, bottled water, nothing special. As I stood at the register, my phone started buzzing in my pocket. I didn't have to check the screen, I knew it was Lena. I ignored it. But the buzzing kept coming, call after call, message after message. She must have gotten home and seen the empty closet, the missing duffel, the folder gone from the desk. I couldn't read her messages yet. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses, her fake crying, the classic, "you've got it all wrong" line. So I silenced the phone, threw it in my pocket, and got back on the road. The resort wasn't much, but it was exactly what I needed. Big bed, little kitchen, a fireplace, and a deck overlooking a quiet lake. It felt like I'd stepped into a whole different world, one where none of that chaos existed. I tossed my stuff in the corner, sat on the edge of the bed, and finally let myself breathe. A deep, shaky breath that felt like it came from somewhere I didn't even know was tight. That was the moment it really hit me. This wasn't just a rough patch. It wasn't just a fight. I'd walked away from my fiancée, from our home, from the life I thought we were building together. I spent the rest of the afternoon unpacking, trying to make the place feel less foreign, but everything felt off. Every time I turned my head, I half expected to hear Lena's voice or see her walk in and ask what I wanted for dinner. Every creak of the floor made my stomach tighten. Later, I made myself a sandwich from the snacks I'd picked up and finally checked my phone. 23 missed calls. And a wave of texts from Lena. They started out like nothing was wrong. "Hey babe, you heading out somewhere? Did you forget to tell me? Let me know when you're coming back." Then they shifted. "Ethan. Seriously. Where are you? This isn't funny. Where are you? Are you okay? Why's your stuff gone? What's happening?" The texts just kept coming. And then the tone shifted, panic started bleeding through. "Please call me. I don't understand. Please." I didn't answer. Instead, I called my parents. Now, my folks aren't the type to pry unless it's really necessary. When I told them I'd left Lena and that the wedding was officially off, my mom simply said, "Okay, sweetheart. Want to talk about it?" I kept things short. "She's not who I thought she was," I told them. That was all I needed to say. My dad jumped in, voice steady and sure, "Good for you, son. Better now than later." They didn't push for more, and honestly, I was grateful for that. I let them know I was holed up at a resort for a bit to clear my head. They said they supported me no matter what. And they meant it. That first night in the cabin was weird. My nerves were shot. I kept half expecting Lena to show up out of nowhere, bursting through the door to demand answers or try to talk me into coming back. Lying there, I started replaying everything, every late night planning dates, all the sacrifices, the money I'd saved for the wedding, all the times I bit my tongue about Brielle. And for what? So she could throw it all away in one wild night. By the time I got into bed, I knew for sure, I was done. No coming back. No hearing her out. No forgiveness speech was going to fix this. It was over. And, honestly, I was at peace with that. But one thing kept crawling around in the back of my mind, Brielle. She wasn't just some innocent bystander in this disaster. No, she was the one steering the ship. That video wasn't a slip-up, it was a souvenir. A highlight reel she was proud to show off. And that note she left with the package? You deserved every second of it. That wasn't a joke. That was a confession. Brielle had always rubbed me the wrong way. One of the first people Lena introduced me to when we started dating, and I remember instantly thinking, yeah, she's gonna be a problem. Loud, always making some smart-ass comment, acting like the center of the universe. Lena thought she was hilarious, called her the life of the party. I thought she was annoying as hell. Over the years, I tolerated her. Mostly because I had to. Lena loved her like a sister. But I never trusted her, not even a little. Looking back, I should have trusted my gut. Brielle always dragged Lena out, even when we had plans. There were nights when Lena would stumble in at 2 in the morning, with Brielle cackling in the background, yelling, "Sorry for stealing your girl, Ethan." Back then, I'd laugh along with it. But now? Now it just made my stomach turn. Sitting in that cabin, I made up my mind, I wasn't ready to face Lena just yet. But Brielle? I needed to have words with her. I didn't want to call her directly, so I downloaded a burner app and sent her a text. Something vague, something she couldn't resist replying to. "Hey, it's Ethan. We need to talk about Lena. Meet me at the coffee shop on 7th, tomorrow. Noon." She replied in 5 minutes flat. WTF? Are you okay? Is Lena okay? What's going on? I didn't respond. The next day, I drove back into the city, parked a couple blocks from the shop, and waited. Right on cue, Brielle strutted inside like she owned the place, exactly on time. Bright pink blazer, sky-high heels, sunglasses still on indoors. Same over-the-top vibe as always. Classic Brielle. I waited a few minutes before heading in. Sat down across from her at the table. She looked caught off guard at first but then gave me that fake smile. "Ethan. You scared me with that message. What's going on?" I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Cut the crap, Brielle. I know what went down at the Bachelorette party." Her face twitched for a second, but then she tried to play it cool. What do you mean?" I leaned in, kept my voice quiet but firm. "I mean the flash drive. The videos. The gift bag you left at the apartment. I know all of it." She just stared for a beat, then let out this nervous little laugh. "Oh, come on, Ethan. It was just Bachelorette party fun. You're not really upset about that, are you?" "Upset?" I sat back in my chair. "That's putting it lightly. What kind of friend encourages cheating, then sends a damn highlight reel like it's a party favor?" Her face turned red. Not from guilt, more like she'd been called out and didn't like it. "It wasn't like that," she said, rushing her words. "It was just a fun night. No one got hurt." I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened the folder where I'd saved the screenshots. Without saying a word, I slid the phone across the table toward her. There it was, her own words, staring back at her in bold letters. "Bride of the Year. You owned that stage, girl. Don't feel guilty. It's your last chance to be free." Brielle's eyes widened, and she immediately tried to push the phone back toward me. "Ethan, come on. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's just tradition, you know. Every bride gets one wild night." "Tradition?" I repeated, my voice rising just a bit. "That's what you're calling it?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks a hell of a lot like you were the one cheering her on the whole time." Brielle let out a long sigh and leaned back in her chair, arms crossed like she was the victim in all this. "Look, I didn't force her to do anything, okay? She's an adult. She made her own choices. And you were right there, hyping her up while she burned everything we built," I snapped. "You were supposed to be her friend, someone who had her back. Instead, you helped her wreck the life we had together." She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Oh, please. It's not like she doesn't love you. It was just one night. You two can move past this." That was it. I slammed my palm down on the table. The smack echoed through the cafe and made her jump. "Move past this?" I said, barely holding myself together. "You think I can just forget the fact that she slept with 3 random guys like it was no big deal? Just pretend it didn't happen because you called it a wild night? You've got some nerve." Brielle looked around nervously, clearly aware that people had started to glance over. She lowered her voice. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe it got out of hand. But really, Ethan, this is between you and Lena. Don't drag me into it. I stood up slowly, picked up my phone, and looked her dead in the eye. Oh, you're already in it, I said. And believe me, everyone's gonna see you for who you really are. Her face went pale. What does that mean? She asked, eyes wide. You'll find out soon enough, I said, and I walked out. On the drive back to the resort, her words echoed in my head. She's a grown woman. She made her own choices. As much as I wanted to throw all the blame on Brielle, she was right about one thing. Lena didn't have to go along with any of it. She could have said no. Could have walked away. Could have remembered she had a fiancé waiting at home. But she didn't. Brielle may have struck the match, but Lena was the one who let the fire burn. That realization hit hard. I always thought Lena was just the spontaneous, bubbly type. Carefree, not careless. But now I saw it differently. She wasn't just fun. She was reckless. And she didn't care who got hurt in the process. When I got back to the cabin, I sat down at the little table by the window and opened my laptop. I still wasn't ready to talk to Lena face to face, but I couldn't let Brielle twist the narrative before I had a chance to explain it myself. So I started writing an email. I attached all the screenshots, along with a couple short clips from the flash drive, just enough to show what really happened, no commentary, no accusations, just the truth. And I sent it to a few of our mutual friends. The ones I knew I could trust to keep quiet until I was ready to speak up myself. I never heard from Brielle again after that meeting. Not a call, not a text. I figured she knew there was nothing she could say to clean up the mess she helped make. And honestly, I didn't care. She wasn't my problem anymore. I knew what I had to do next, reach out to Lena's parents. Let them see the reality of who their perfect daughter really was. Now, let me be clear, Lena's family had always had this sort of uptight, old-school vibe. The kind that makes you feel like you're under a microscope every time you're in the room. When we moved in together 3 years back, her mom, Diane, reacted like we were hosting illegal fight clubs in our living room. She never said it outright, but those constant little comments. You know, living together before marriage isn't proper. Always delivered with that polite, disapproving tone, made her stance crystal clear. Her dad, Frank, wasn't much for words, but he didn't hide his opinion either. Whenever the topic came up, he'd mutter, "Back in my day, we did things differently," and leave it at that. But when I finally put a ring on Lena's finger, suddenly I was golden. Diane dove into wedding planning like it was her new full-time job. Bridal shower invites, floral samples, seating charts, you name it. Frank even offered to help with the down payment on a house. It was like I'd passed some unspoken test. Now I was worthy. But after everything that went down, I couldn't just keep it to myself. Lena had betrayed me, and now it was her turn to face some consequences. Especially with her parents, who spent years acting like their daughter could do no wrong. They doted on her, backed her financially, and held me to some imaginary standard I was finally starting to realize she never lived up to herself. Meanwhile, Lena's calls and texts kept pouring in. Non-stop since I left the cafe. Ethan, please. Please answer me. I know you're angry, but we need to talk. I love you. Don't give up on us. That was the kind of stuff she kept texting me. Over and over. Every new message made my blood boil. She didn't get to play the victim now. Not after what she did. She made her choices, freely, fully. And I hadn't answered a single call or replied to a single text, and I didn't plan to. But then one came in from Diane. Ethan, what's going on? Lena's a wreck. Please call me. We're worried. I stared at it for a long minute. I knew I couldn't just leave this hanging forever. Not with her parents being dragged into it now. I figured, if anyone was going to deal with Lena at this point, it sure as hell wasn't going to be me. Let her parents handle the mess. They always acted like they knew best anyway. So the next morning, I drove back into the city and headed straight to Diane and Frank's house. I didn't tell Lena I was going, not that I owed her a heads up. I knew she'd probably lose her mind once she found out, but at that point, I didn't care. When Diane opened the front door, her face lit up with relief, but I could see the worry too. "Oh, Ethan, thank God. I've been so worried. Lena hasn't stopped crying since yesterday. What's going on?" Inside, Frank was in his usual spot, sitting in his recliner, newspaper in hand. He looked up at the sound of my voice and gave me a nod. "Ethan. Glad you're here. Maybe you can finally tell us what the hell is happening." I stepped in and sat down on their pristine white couch, one of those stiff, never-been-sat-on pieces that felt more like display furniture. I looked at them both and said, steady and straight, "I came to tell you the truth." Diane sat across from me, her hands clenched in her lap. Frank leaned forward in his chair, eyes narrowed. I pulled out my phone and tapped into the folder of screenshots and videos. "Lena's been lying. To you. To me. The wedding's off because of what she did during her bachelorette party." Diane blinked. "What are you talking about? What could she have possibly done that's so terrible?" I held the phone out to her. "Watch this." She hesitated for a second, eyes flicking between me and the screen. But eventually, she hit play. I watched the confusion on her face slowly twist into horror. "Oh my God," she whispered, voice trembling. This can't be real. Ethan, tell me this isn't real." Frank stood up sharply. His face was red, eyes hard with anger. "What's going on?" he barked. "Let me see that." Diane, now crying, handed the phone to him. He stared down at the screen, jaw tight, fists slowly clenching around the phone like he wanted to crush it in his hands. "This is what she did," I said, my voice calm but heavy. "She didn't just cheat, she made a damn show of it. And her so-called friends stood there cheering her on." Diane dropped her face into her hands, sobbing. "I can't believe this," she mumbled through tears. "I can't believe she would do something like this." Frank started pacing the room, fists still clenched. "That girl, that damn girl. We raised her better than this. What the hell was she thinking?" "She wasn't thinking," I said. "And now she's texting me, begging me to talk it out, acting like it was just a mistake. But I'm done. I thought you both needed to know what happened, because I'm not going to be the one cleaning up after her." Diane looked up at me, her eyes red and pleading. "Ethan, please. Maybe just talk to her. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe she got caught up in something she didn't want." "She wasn't pressured," I cut in. "She had plenty of chances to say no. She didn't. She made those choices, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering if she'll do it again." Frank pointed a finger at Diane, voice sharp. "This is what happens when she listens to that damn Brielle instead of her family. I told you that girl was bad news. I told you." Diane nodded slowly, wiping tears from her face. "We should have said something sooner. We never should have let her move in with you. Maybe if we hadn't." I let out a bitter chuckle. The irony was too much. "You think her moving in with me was the problem?" I asked. "You've been so caught up in what's proper that you missed the real issue. Lena's reckless. She has been for a long time. And now she's finally facing the consequences." Frank sat down again, shaking his head like he still couldn't believe it. "Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable." I stood up, sliding my phone back into my pocket. "Look, I'm sorry to lay this on you, but this isn't mine to deal with anymore. She's going to come running to you for help, and it's on you now to decide what to do with that." I'd already made up my mind. As I headed for the door, Diane reached out and grabbed my arm. "Ethan, please don't say anything to anyone else about this. Think about how humiliating this is for our family." I gently pulled my arm free. "That's not something I worry about anymore, Diane," I told her. "You'll have to handle that yourselves." Driving back to the resort, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: closure. For years, Lena's parents looked at me like I was beneath their daughter, like I didn't measure up. But now they knew the truth. Their picture-perfect daughter had destroyed everything all by herself. Later that evening, another voicemail popped up on my phone, from Diane. "Ethan, it's Diane. I honestly don't even know what to say. Frank and I are heartbroken. We confronted Lena, and she completely fell apart. She keeps saying she doesn't know how to fix any of this, but truthfully, neither do we. I just wanted to say, we're really, really sorry. If you ever want to talk, we're here." I didn't even think twice. I deleted it. Lena could deal with her own mess now. I was out. She could explain herself to them. Let them figure out how to pick up the pieces. I wasn't her fallback anymore. And it didn't take long for the truth to start making rounds. After dropping the news on Lena's parents, I figured it was time to tell a few more people. Was it petty? Maybe a little. But I didn't want this buried like it never happened. People needed to know what Lena and her friends had done. If I stayed quiet, they'd all go on pretending nothing ever went wrong, and I couldn't let that slide. The first person I messaged was Sabrina, one of Lena's close friends. She wasn't as reckless as Brielle, but she was still there that night. She joined in, hyped everything up, probably thinking it was all innocent fun. She wasn't getting a pass. I shot her a simple text. "Sabrina, I know what happened at the Bachelorette party. I've got the videos and the messages. Don't play dumb, we need to talk." Sabrina called me within minutes. Her voice trembled, clearly rattled. "Ethan, what the hell is this? Where did you get all this? Does it matter?" I said, keeping my voice steady. "You were there. You saw everything." She stumbled through her words, then said, "I didn't think it was that serious, okay? I thought it was just some harmless dancing and flirting. I didn't know." "You didn't know she disappeared with 3 guys?" I cut in. "You didn't know she cheated on me right in front of everyone?" There was a long pause. I almost thought she hung up. Then came a quiet sigh. "Look, Ethan, I'm sorry. I should have said something, but what was I supposed to do? Lena kept going on about how boring marrying you would be. She wanted one last wild night. Brielle was encouraging her, and Lena she got drunk and followed along." I let out a dry laugh. "Followed along? That's your excuse." "No, Sabrina, she didn't just go with the flow. She made those choices, drunk or not. And you all just stood there and let her." Sabrina tried to walk it back. "I didn't think it was my place." "It was absolutely your place," I snapped. "You were supposed to be her friend. A real friend would have pulled her aside and told her to stop." She didn't have much left to say. Before hanging up, she apologized again and said she'd talk to Lena. I wasn't expecting much. Then came the next domino, Brielle. I didn't even need to reach out to her. Lena's parents must have gone off on her after I left, because the next day, Lena called me more than 20 times. I didn't answer a single one. Then I got a message from Brielle, and she wasn't exactly polite. "Ethan, what are you telling people? Lena's a wreck, and now everyone's acting weird around me. You need to quit this." I actually chuckled reading it. So now Brielle was sweating. Good. I didn't even bother replying to Brielle's text. Let her stew in it for a while. But the real satisfaction came when Sabrina cracked and spilled everything to their friend group. She might have stood by Lena that night, but she sure wasn't going to sync with her. She started backing away from both Lena and Brielle, fast, telling anyone who'd listen that she didn't know the full story, and that if she had, she never would have gone along with any of it. By the end of that week, the whole thing had blown up. Lena went from being the fun bride-to-be to the girl nobody wanted to be seen with. Her own social circle practically exiled her. That's when Jade, one of their mutual friends, reached out to me. We weren't especially close, but she'd always been decent to me whenever we crossed paths in group settings. Her message surprised me. "Hey Ethan, I'm really sorry you're going through all this. I never imagined Lena would do something like that. If there's anything I can do, please let me know." Meanwhile, Lena hadn't given up trying to contact me. The messages weren't coming in as fast, but they were still coming. "Ethan, I know you're upset, but we need to talk. Please. I'll do anything to fix this. Just tell me what to do." It was getting sad at that point. She wasn't apologizing because she felt remorse. She was panicking because her whole life was unraveling. And then came the final blow. Lena and Brielle finally turned on each other. What started as a quiet disagreement quickly exploded into a full-on screaming match. Brielle, tired of being blamed for everything, snapped. "Don't act like I forced you to do anything, Lena. You were totally in. Quit pretending you're the victim." Jade ended up hearing about the whole fight and texted me right after. "Lena and Brielle aren't even talking anymore. Brielle's telling everyone Lena tried to pin it all on her. Total disaster." I couldn't help but feel a little bit of grim satisfaction. Brielle had always acted like she was above it all, stirring drama, manipulating people, never facing consequences. Now she was getting a taste of her own medicine. The last update I got from Diane was that Lena was completely falling apart. At first, I figured it was the usual: tears, guilt trips, desperate texts. But as more details trickled in from people who knew her, it sounded like things were a lot worse than I expected. Turns out, after my confrontation with her parents, Diane and Frank had finally hit their limit. I knew they were upset, but I didn't think they'd take it this far. Apparently, Diane tried to sit Lena down and knock some sense into her. But Lena just doubled down, blamed me for everything. Said I blew things out of proportion and that I was ruining her life over one mistake. That didn't sit well with them. Diane and Frank were all about keeping up appearances. The idea that their friends and extended family now knew what their daughter had done. That was their worst nightmare. And when they realized Lena wasn't going to take responsibility, they kicked her out, literally. They packed up her stuff, dumped it on the front porch, and told her not to come back until she got her act together. Knowing Diane, she probably threw in something brutal like, "You're an embarrassment to this family." Lena tried crashing with Brielle, but that door was already closed. After that massive argument, Brielle wanted nothing to do with her anymore. She made it crystal clear, letting Lena stay would just drag her deeper into the mess. Jade told me Lena had reached out to a few other friends, too, but most of them had already pulled away. Sabrina ignored her calls. The rest didn't want to get dragged into the drama. By the end of the week, Lena was basically couch surfing, staying wherever she could find a spare bed for the night. And then came the financial hit. Lena had been working some cushy office job, the kind you don't get without connections. Her dad, Frank, had pulled strings to land her that gig, and she'd been cruising ever since. But once they kicked her out, Frank made it clear, he wasn't covering for her anymore. From what I'd heard, Lena's manager wasn't exactly singing her praises even before everything blew up. She'd already been warned a few times, late to work, half-hearted on her projects, that sort of thing. So when her personal mess started leaking into the office, mostly through gossip passed along by mutual connections, the company decided she just wasn't worth the hassle anymore. They let her go, officially calling it a downsizing move, but everyone knew better. When Jade told me Lena had lost her job, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a flicker of validation. It wasn't about wanting to see her fall apart. It was more about her finally facing the ripple effects of what she'd done. For so long, Lena just coasted through life, knowing someone else would always clean up after her. Not this time. Now there was no safety net beneath her. Word got back to me that after losing the job, she went crawling back to Diane and Frank. She showed up at their door, crying, pleading to be let back in. Said she didn't have anywhere else to go. But they stood their ground. She was out of chances. At that point, she had nothing left. No job. No home. No friends willing to step up. And the messages from her? They only got more desperate. Ethan, please. I need to talk to you. I've got no one else. I'm sorry. I've lost everything, my job, my place to live, all of it. I know I messed up. Please, please give me another shot. I'll do whatever you want. Just, tell me what to do. I didn't answer. Not a word. I wasn't about to let her guilt trip me into opening that door again. She made her decisions. Now she had to live with them. About a week later, one of our old friends, Noah, reached out with an update. Apparently, Lena had contacted him too, hoping he'd offer her a place to stay. But Noah doesn't play games. She's in rough shape, man, he told me. Crying on the phone, saying she doesn't know what to do. But I told her straight, this isn't my problem. He wasn't being cruel. He just wasn't about to let her pull the same emotional manipulation on him that she tried with me. Eventually, Jade mentioned that Lena had scraped together enough cash to rent a tiny room in some rundown apartment on the far end of town. She used what little savings she had left just to cover the first month's rent. After that, she was scrambling. She ended up picking up a part-time job at a local coffee shop, but it barely covered the basics. She's barely holding it together, Jade said. I don't think I've ever seen her this low. What caught me off guard the most was how fast her whole social circle vanished. For years, Lena had been the life of the party, the planner, the ringleader, the one who always pulled everyone together. But now that she was the one in need, nobody stuck around. Brielle completely washed her hands of the situation. She's not my responsibility, is all she said. Sabrina? She cut ties completely. Said she couldn't deal with the chaos anymore. Even Jade, who had tried to stay neutral through it all, eventually stopped talking to her. Lena had burned every single bridge she ever had. And now? She was left alone, trying to start from zero. I won't pretend I didn't feel a bit of grim satisfaction watching it all unfold. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because it confirmed something I already knew deep down: choices have consequences. For years, Lena depended on everyone else to clean up her messes. But this time, she was on her own, forced to face the outcome of everything she'd done. As for me, I was finally moving forward. Every day, I felt a little farther from all the chaos. A little closer to peace. Lena. She was out there, trying to rebuild from the ashes. And honestly, that's exactly where she needed to be.